Hello, and welcome everyone to a new Heroes of Might and Magic Olden Era video. In this one, as you can already see, I'm going to be tiering every single spell available in the game, so you know what to look out for, which are the good ones, what are the bad ones to avoid. Let's get straight into it. There's going to be control spells, there's going to be, every single school of spells, and we're going to be ranking them from F to S. So first up is we have Second Wind. So Second Wind is high neutral spell that is unlockable by getting insight from astrology. And I believe this is one of the best spells in the entire game. This is the first, control spell that you go for. It just gives you more moon points. It makes you go faster. It just makes the games, far more smooth, far faster, far better. And you go for this every single game. It is amazing. S tier. Next up is Magic Arrow. So Magic Arrow is a spell that you get as a sub-skill, and it's not very good. I believe it's Thaumaturgy, or maybe I'm pretty sure it's Thaumaturgy. However, it is really bad. It doesn't even matter which sub-skill it is from. Sometimes I see it in my spellbook because I get like all sub-skills from like a specific skill. And it's really bad. It costs 0 mana, so you can use it like every turn for free. And sounds good, doesn't work. Because it scales off of spell power. However, if you have like enough spell power, then you probably want to cast like something better in order to like utilize that spell power. Because it only gains 5 damage per spell power. And, using up an entire cast for this is absolute garbage. I haven't had any decent use case for it, so it is F tier. Next up is Dimension Door. Just like Second Wind, it is a staple of the game. Dimension Door in every single Heroes of Might and Magic game has been amazing, and Olden Era is no exception. It is S tier. It is below Second Wind, despite being a little bit better than Second Wind in general, but that's because of accessibility. You need to be level 12 to learn it, you go for it later, like in many games you're going to be ending it before you actually get it at a decent level, so despite being super good, it's a little bit worse than Second Wind in my opinion. Then we have Relocation. So relocation is a little bit of a weird one. If you ever can get it from like a sigil from recruitment, then it's amazing. So yeah, this spell is you get this spell from a sub-skill in recruitment, and it lets you pick up all the army from a certain town, making rallying army far easier, better, and smoother. It feels really good to have, but you usually do not want to invest into having this. That is because if you're going recruitment, you really want to be getting like the low tier army benefits. So like more stats, more HP, and the relocation is like contrary to getting those things because you need to like pick only one sub-skill. So usually it's not good enough to be picked as a sub-skill, but whenever you get it from like a sigil, it actually feels pretty good. I will put it B tier. Next up is the Gate of Light. The Gate of Light is like a limp DD, but you can go back and forth, so if anything is in a corner of the map, you can actually pick it up like decently smoothly. However, I almost never go for this. I think it's actually not good enough to go for in general, and because of this, I will put it in C tier. Like, it's like a decent second option after, you pick up Second Wind, you pick up Dimension Door, then, if you want like more mobility and you have like Insight remaining over, you would go for Gate of Light. However, as the weakest of the, one of the weakest of the options for Insight, I don't really think that is that good, at least for one hero gameplay. Maybe it feels different whenever you're going to be playing Classic. However, I am, single hero ladder enjoyer, so everything that I'm going to be like talking about is going to be through that lens, so be aware. Next up is Town Portal, one of the best feeling spells in the game. What's better than clicking a spell in order to travel a huge amount of distance into a very relevant spot where you're going to be buying army, recovering mana, rallying, and so on. Town Portal is amazing, and yeah, you get this immediately available in very many formats in Olden Era, and is always super pleasant to use. Next up is Shadow Flight. So the basic fly is already good enough, you get like terrain penalty removal, and you also get, when you level it up, you also even like use less moon points to walk around. It's an amazing utility spell. And yeah, most of these like high neutral spells are going to be like immediately S tier, for they allow you to play the game like far faster and do more things per turn. And there's almost nothing better in a Heroes of Might and Magic game than being able to do just that. So that's why S tier. Next up is Mana Right. Use up all of your moon points in order to gain mana. For some scenarios, like, campaign, where you are venturing far from towns, the turns are not really that meaningful, but you want to be able to sustain yourself, it can be decent, but in terms of, like, PvP, it is trash. You almost never go for this. Next up is the Summon Avatar. Basically, this is just like rating the Summon Avatar subskill in its entirety, and right now it is pretty overtuned and amazing. This guy can carry you throughout the entire game, and is one of the best spells in the entire game. 0 mana to summon a very big dude. What can possibly be better? Next up is the Back to Town, the Logistics subskill spell. This one is pretty garbage. You use up all of your moon points. It has like a pretty big range limitation. For the formats that are currently like in play, I feel like this is like not really good at all. However, in other formats, it can be decent, can be usable. It is not completely botched and failed. It is just bad, kind of bad. Next up is the Arena's Chosen. So Arena's Chosen, I'm going to be rating it outside of the basically exploit. So there's a set that gives you like 10,000 duration for everything, and if your Arena's Chosen something for 10,000 turns, you actually turn the stack immortal, completely immortal. We haven't like really found a way to kill it, so it can straight up win games when cast in that context, but outside of that context, I feel like it's a pretty trash spell. And because of that, I am going to be putting it in C tier. I have not found the use cases for it at all. Next up is Vengeance. Vengeance is a level 4 daylight spell that deals a lot of magic damage whenever you are attacked. And it's really good because the damage that you deal is actually very significant. You can force retaliations, or you can just make the stack like very unappealing to attack. And also, when you have it at high level, even range attacks apply. It is very impressive and one of the better spells to cast in the late game. A tier. Weakening Ray. So Weakening Ray just like removes retaliation from an opponent. A pretty high level, I believe up to level 3 daylight spell, or maybe level 2. Either way, it's pretty garbage and usually not really worth a full cast, and unless you're in a very specific situation. It is not completely botched, so it will be C tier. From a Bird's Eye. This is going to be A tier. This is our view air of Olden era. This is the way that you find enemy heroes, and you see like the locations of enemy towns as well. This is the way to observe your opponent, and it is not really essential actually if you know the map layouts well enough. And then also the tournament formats is also useless. However, in the formats where you do need to know what the opponent's all about, then it's gonna be like a really good one. Next up is Radiant Armor. This is a colossal spell. Level 4 Daylight. This is basically like the biggest payoff for Daylight, at least in my opinion. It will give all of your army 40% damage reduction from all damage sources. It is insane, and it stacks up super well with other defensive layers as well. And, you cast the spell and you feel immortal. It feels really, really good to cast. It is a very impressive spell. Amazing. In my opinion, S tier. I'm gonna be putting... I'm not gonna be, like, trying to mingle the control spells and the combat spells together. Like trying to say it's better than TP but worse than Second Wind. Nah. It is just an S tier spell. Next up is Heavenly Blades. So this one makes all your stacks deal flat amount of damage, and it also will heal for that flat amount of damage as well, but not the heal. It will not be able to like restore dead units. It's a level 4 spell and it's pretty expensive. The only good use case is that when it's level 4, it will immediately kill all summons and temporary units in a stack. So it's pretty good against like late game Schism, it's pretty good against, like summon spam. All of your units are able to like one-shot summons. So for that reason, it is not useless. However, usually it's like way too expensive and way too specific to get online and use properly. It is B tier. Next up is Judgment. Judgment is the implosion of Olden era. However, Olden Era is actually like pretty army focused. In Heroes of Might and Magic 3, we used to have like playstyles where you had like barely any army whatsoever. You would play on summons, you would play on spells, and so on. So big spells were like, you know, really, really good. However, in Olden Era, because it is way more army focused, usually if you are like a late game caster, you want to be casting like very good, impactful buffs on your army rather than, you know, exploding the opponent's stacks. So I feel like Judgment is actually like not that often used. It also needs like daylight bubbles in order for it to deal like meaningful amount of damage anyway. So actually, I'm gonna be putting it B tier. This one was really, really surprising to me. When I was coming into the game, I thought that Judgment was like one of the best, most oppressive spells in the entire game. But then when I was actually playing my high ladder PvP games, I very rarely clicked the spell, even when it was available. I would way rather even have like some level 1 spells, like a Natural Calm over Judgment, very often. Next up is Clear Fog. Now, this is a spell that I underuse like so much. You just get to like select a big radius far away from you, and you get to like just scout everything out. It gives you so much vision. It's kind of insane. It's a really, really good spell that I currently underutilize. So if you're watching my gameplay, you're not really seeing the spell a lot, but it's really good, and I promise I'll try to do better in getting to use it more, okay? A tier. Inner Light. So, okay, let's explain a few things. Well, one thing. There's a very big thing about Olden Era, which is gonna be basically buff and debuff economy. You know, power wasn't really important in Heroes of Might and Magic 3. In very many cases, because you would usually like cast buffs, and buffs don't really like use power that much. However, that has changed in Olden Era because duration is now a very important thing. More power means more duration, and also more power means that you can remove more duration of buffs, and also, you know, like remove debuffs, remove buffs. You can do like all sorts of things with power, and Inner Light is the way that you do it. Inner Light will remove debuffs off of your army, and that is massively important because you can get Twilighted, you suddenly can shoot, you can get Unnatural Calm, suddenly you're dealing no damage. In order to like be able to shrug all of that off, there's no better way to do so than Inner Light. It is one of the most important spells to have, no matter what sort of style you're playing. It is an essential spell, and it is S tier. Really, really good. Next up is Riposte. Riposte is a level 3 daylight spell that makes you retaliate before you get hit. It also gives you some extra retaliations too. It is a pretty solid spell. However, I very rarely see myself casting it. I mean, usually there's a better spell for almost every single scenario, as it turns out. Unless you're going for like an actual retaliation sort of playstyle, then it will not really do a lot for you. You will be, you know, casting something else. It is still solid, just as a baseline, so I will put it in B tier. Next up is Taunt. So Taunt is also like one of those like abuseful sort of spells. It was used to cheese fights by making like a line of units and then putting a taunted unit at the other side, and that would make every melee unit that the guy would be using unable to do anything at all. So you could get away with doing super big fights very early by just using taunt and making that setup. It was a pretty toxic thing that fortunately got removed. With its removal, the spell, I think, now is absolute garbage. Next up is Shortened Shadow. So Shortened Shadow at its peak is going to be reducing the opponent's attack and defense skill by 2 every single round, stacking up. It's a decent idea, but fights are happening too fast in Olden Era for this to actually like meaningfully stack up. So in the current state of the game, it is not a very good spell. I will put it C tier. I very, very rarely, if ever, cast it. Favorable Wind. You'll be doing more damage on a single unit. So most of these buffs, whenever you get a buffs and debuffs, whenever you get them to like a high enough level, they're going to be like AoE, with the exception of Vengeance or like some other really big things. Favorable Wind is 50% damage for long reach and range attacks, which is quite a bit at peak level, but it being for a single target is a very big limitation. Usually you're going to be usually you will find something better to cast. The only use case, I think, is when you're using angels and you have like a crossbowman stack. So you buff like the crossbowman stack, the angel will be, you know, nom nom on the buff, they will also get it. And then if you're buffing like multiple stacks, then it's kind of palatable, but outside of that, it's not really good at all. C tier. Next up is haste. Haste is that level 1 spell that you find in your spellbook and you're clicking like very often. You know, you need to like connect on a stack on this turn. Well, you're missing like 1 or 2 like hexes. You're gonna be casting haste in order to like bridge that gap. It is the kind of spell that you're using in almost like every single fight. You know, against like those small AI fights, and it's like so trusty, so handy. It is an awesome spell to always have in your disposal. So despite only being like a single hex and not super impactful, it is still like a very solid spell to always keep a lookout for. Yeah. So next up is Blessing. So Blessing will make you deal 35% more attack damage, range, and melee on all of your army on higher levels. It is amazing how much damage this adds, and for a level 1 spell, honestly, this is very, very amazing, and such a good spell. You know, it feels so good to use. Like, just amazing. This is what Daylight is all about. Blessing. Next is Healing Water. This will just heal a stack. You know, it will not, like, revive any units. It will not actually even cure any debuffs. It will just heal. It's not very impactful. However, sometimes when you're using like a high tier unit and you don't have like many of them, you need to like not bleed anything, you might actually want to heal up your stack. And you will also like get some healing over time on you as well. It is okay in some scenarios, but not very great. It's C tier. Next up is Song of Power. So Song of Power will be, you know, refreshing the cooldown of your creature abilities. I don't find this very useful. Most of the time, if your creatures are already getting like that one big ability off, then you're already doing like a pretty good job. Getting the Song of Power to like be able to, you know, like cast it again doesn't really seem that impactful. The more impactful part is where you're dispelling debuffs. However, it's only on a single target, and most of the debuffs are going to be AoE. So it's not really that great. For a tier 3 spell, actually maybe tier 2, sorry. Anyway, not impressed. C tier. Next is Arena's Touch. The tier 3 Daylight spell that gives you 20% HP on all of your army and also 2 initiative. Very impressive, very good. When you're trying to like buff up big armies, this is like the 3rd cast or so. Maybe sometimes even 1st, maybe sometimes 2nd, depending on what you have. But you know, if you're buffing army, you're doing like Radiant Armor, then maybe Blessing and Arena's Touch. These are the big 3, and being part of the big 3 will let them I feel like it's a little bit worse than Blessing. The reason being is that it's like about the same power level, maybe as Blessing. However, it's like way harder to get online because it's like a level 3 spell. So for that reason, I will put it high A tier. A very solid one. Umbral Grip. So this is the spell that you like, this is the desperation spell. When you're shuffling through the spellbook, like nothing does anything, okay, I guess I'll ship out the Umbral Grip. Because it deals pure damage, that means it, you know, like bypasses magic damage immunities. It's pretty trusty, pretty decent, and most importantly, reliable. I find myself casting this like pretty often, despite it being like a rather weak spell. It is top of C tier, as it doesn't really do like enough damage and it doesn't have enough impact. This is the go-to desperation spell. Shade Cloak. So Shade Cloak is kind of weak because waiting and skipping a turn actually disables the Shade Cloak. So very oftentimes when you want to cast Shade Cloak is when you want to hide like getting lethalled. You know, you're like waiting on a cooldown on like the next avatar. I need to survive. I'm gonna Shade Cloak. And then you realize that you skip the turn on the Shade Cloak unit and then, you know, it's no longer Shade Cloaked. So it's kind of hard to get this thing, you know, to be very good. I don't think that this is a good spell. It is very niche. Very, very niche. Not very great. So there it goes. Next up is Web. So Web is going to be reducing the speed of a single target by 2 by default and goes up to more. It's pretty good. It's like haste, but you know, reverse, sometimes it's good. But usually the only reason why you cast web is because you don't have like many other better alternatives. And there are very many better alternatives in the game. You just happen to not have any on hand. And honestly, having this like tier 2 spell on hand when you need it is also like kind of rare. I don't think it's very good. The notable exception is Marl, the masterful web guy that is able to cast it en masse. Now that guy is a monster, and casting like mass web from the early phases of the game is ridiculously strong feeling. However, outside of that, it is not a very good spell. High C tier. Unnatural Calm. So this is what, if Blessing is what Daylight is all about, then Unnatural Calm is what Nightshade is all about. It reduces the damage of all the enemies by 30%, and it's a level 1 spell that you can get to level 4 pretty easily in order to like get the full payoff. It is amazing. Very oftentimes I will click this spell over many of the higher tier spells. This is the spell whenever if I have it, I'm gonna be casting it on almost every single like small fight even. It just makes things so much better. It is amazing. S tier. Next up is Naira's Veil. Naira's Veil basically reinstates the Fog of War. So if the opponent like has vision somewhere, you cast Naira's Veil, and it's gonna be like the Cover of Darkness. Reintroducing Shade. Not very good, not very meaningful. I would say it's F tier, and doesn't really like do a lot in any of the current formats. Well, actually it should be C tier. It can be decent and a little bit annoying. Next is Twilight. So Twilight is also one of the big Nightshade spells. It will make everything not be able to shoot, and not only that, it will also make them deal 15% reduced damage, so it will affect even the non-shooters and make them weaker too. It is a very, very good spell and can win fights straight up. If you are up against like some shooter composition and you have more Twilight duration on the cast than they have Inner Light duration, you just straight up win. Being able to just win off of casting a spell is exceptional, and Twilight can do that, and it's good in so many scenarios. It is one of the best spells in the game, honestly. Next up is the super oppressive Summon Star Child. So if you're rolling with a lot of power and you want to make that power into like some sort of strength, then Star Child Children is gonna be the best spell available to you in well, almost like the entire game. It will summon a stack of shooters that are going to be having AoE shots. You summon very many of them, they're healthy, they can even like brawl melee pretty well. If you don't have a way to dispel these, they are going to be like wrecking you. It's a very, very good spell, and every single caster always wants to get their hands on this. S tier. And the best part is that you don't even need Nightshade levels for this to be like that good, you know? A Natural Calm, if you don't have like Nightshade levels, is pretty bad. But Summon Star Child, level 1, slam it, you know? You're still getting all of those units, it's amazing. Naira's Kiss. So Naira's Kiss is one of the... It's honestly like just a better implosion, because it will make a very, very large debuff on the opponent that will be making them, whenever they take any action, take a lot of damage and also lose initiative and speed. So whenever you Naira's Kiss someone, if they don't have like a way to dispel it, that stack is kind of doomed. Because even retaliating, you can hit a stack, and if it will retaliate, then it will also take a tick of Naira's Kiss. And the tick is like massive. You take like 2 ticks of this, you're like dead. So... yeah, this is basically like insta-kill a stack, and that's a damn good spell. But because it's single target and most of like the good spells are doing something on mass or have some lasting value, I will not put it in S tier. It is an A tier spell. Next up is Coup de Grace. So this spell is going to be making it so whenever you deal damage to a stack past a certain threshold, it will be insta-killed. At peak value, that threshold is going to be 35%. So if there's like 100 Archangels, now there's 35, and you deal like 1 damage to it, those 35 remaining Archangels that have Coup de Grace on them will die. And it's a mass spell, however, with pretty low duration. So this is like a really good finisher. However, being like a finisher, needing like a lot of Nightshade levels, being like a level 5 spell that's pretty hard to activate, it's pretty hard to like get this thing like doing that much. So despite being like very strong in power level, it is low B tier. Next is Read Minds. This is a core piece of using diplomacy. It will let you know whether something will be fleeing from you, whether they will be joining you. You know, so when you're playing diplomacy, this is like unskippable and essential. However, diplomacy is bad right now. It's in rough shape and almost nobody's playing it. And the people that are playing it are not exactly having like the nicest time. So as long as diplomacy is trash, Read Minds is trash. When diplomacy is going to be good, Read Minds is going to be going all the way up. So yeah. Shadow Army. So Shadow Army is going to be summoning temporary units atop of a stack. So let's say you have 100 Archangels, you cast like a high level Shadow Army, well suddenly you have like 170 Archangels in that stack. It cannot be more than, those temporary units cannot surpass 100% of the original stack size. However, this is one of the strongest summoning spells in the game. And yes, this is a summoning spell, at least it should be treated that way. So a summoning spell that scales with your army and just puts like more army on top of your army is really, really good. If the opponent does not have like a way to deal with it, then it straight up is game winning. And even if the opponent does have a way to deal with it, you can get like a lot of tempo off of it. So, you know, like it's your turn, you cast like the Shadow Army on the unit that you're like moving your turn with. This will probably give you like more damage on that in immediate turn than a Judgment would. And then also it has like lasting value because they have to like deal with it. And if they can deal with it, you win the game. Shadow Army is an amazing spell. S tier. Next up is Sleep. So Sleep is going to be disabling something for up to 3 turns. However, you can only cast it once per stack in the fight, because you're going to be getting the Insomnia debuff. So there's no like shenanigans like you have like in Heroes of Might and Magic 3 where you can like, you know, disable somebody permanently and, you know, like just win the game like that. So it is quite a bit like weaker than Blind, weaker than Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Berserk. However, it still is like a decent little spell for some crowd control. I would put it low B tier. Next is Despair. So Despair is an amazing spell as well. These low-level Nightshade spells are really something, right? So Despair, the reason why it's good, is the most mana-efficient, damaging spell in the early phases of the game. So when, you know, like something is like slowly running at you and you need to like kill them before they like get to you, there's probably like no better spell that you can cast than Despair. At max level, it also becomes an AoE spell. Not a huge AoE, not everyone, but it's pretty impressive. The main downside and the only reason why it's not going to be S tier is because it has like very big limitations. It cannot be cast on magic creatures, embodiments, undead, basically all of like these types. So actually finding something that you can despair sometimes can be like somewhat difficult. So that's like the main problem with it. That's why it's going into low A tier, despite being pretty solid. Very good. Next is Silence. Silence will be prohibiting units from using abilities. Too niche, not good enough. And because it can block like some key abilities like the Phoenix Heat Wave, which can sometimes be like game making or breaking, it will not go into F tier, but it's barely surviving that F tier. For a tier 3 spell, it's just like not really doing enough. Next up is Vulnerability. So Vulnerability will make a stack take significantly more damage. However, I feel like it's too slow. Like this like single target, usually debuff that will just increase your damage. There's usually better ways to go about dealing damage than Vulnerability. It's a very desperate spell. And yeah, not a very good one either. Honestly, I think I'll put it F tier. I've never felt good casting this, even once in the entire time that I played Olden Era, which was probably like hundreds of hours by this point, by the way. Enlarged Shadow. The counterpart to Shortened Shadow. It will be increasing the stats of your army by 2 attack and 2 defense per turn, stacking up. Too slow. Fights happen quite a bit faster in Olden Era, and as such, this is like not really good enough. It can be, you know, used in like niche cases where you get to like kite around versus EI, but you know, like a niche versus EI kind of spell? Yeah, it's just not really that good. Next is Berserk. So Berserk works way different than Olden Era. Whenever you cast it, the stack that you're casting it on will immediately attack the nearest target, and will not like lose your turn or anything, and it will also deal increased damage with that attack. Pretty funny, but the best use case for Berserk usually is actually casting Berserk on your own unit. So like, let's say you're playing Undead, you like send the Whites in, they like, you know, kill a stack and they get like a bunch of extra units. Then you can actually Berserk your White stack to attack something again and do that again. Then even with like more power and then like, you know, the extra units. So usually this is used to gain extra bigger attacks on your own army. So yeah, you're berserking yourself. Sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but it's really good actually. I'm still getting, you know, like wrapping my head around this. It's a little bit counterintuitive to me, but I'm getting there. It's a very solid spell, A tier. Of course, sometimes you can cast it on the opponent tier, and it gets good value there as well. Next up is Fatal Decay, a very important weak spell. So this will prevent the enemies from being able to gain any units. So whether that's going to be like Whites trying to like lifesteal, whether it's going to be like you casting Rewind Life to get the army back, it will prevent any army gain on that stack. And also at high levels, it will decrease the maximum HP of those units as well, which is really good. It's honestly like pretty niche, but it's like so important that I cannot put it below A tier, to be honest. It's just, sometimes when you need it, it's the best spell available in the game. So for that reason, I will say it's at the very least low A tier. Next is Black Hole, the level 5 arcane spell that is a massive explosion. It also has like a displacement thing to it, where it's gonna be like dragging things like towards the center, and it's like a huge AoE, but also like a very weird AoE. Targeting that huge thing feels sometimes pretty clunky and pretty weird. However, it deals like a really good amount of damage and always feels like pretty good to cast. It is one of the better damaging abilities in the game, and deserves a low A tier, in my opinion. Next up is Blink. So Blink is just going to be like repositioning a unit. Well, pretty bad. It's just like, I mean, it's like haste, but it's like tier 2, so it's like less available than a haste. It's just, well, yeah, basically it's just like less available haste. So we're going to be putting it, actually, let's put it in high C tier. Next up is Carapace. So Carapace will be making you ignore up to 2 instances of damage on a single unit. Sometimes this can be pretty good to stop the bleeding. Like, you know, you're going into like a research laboratory, there's just like 5 bone dragons, you're gonna like hit something, and maybe you don't like have 1 stack to feed them. You need to like just man up in your main stack in order to avoid that big hit from the dragon. Carapace is actually going to be like very good in making you avoid bleeding throughout the fight if you have it available. So it's not useless, however, blocking just like an instance or 2 of damage is not really like good enough to be a very good spell. So I think it is once again C tier. Next up is Dorius' Tide. So Dorius' Tide does a lot of things. It gives you initiative, makes the opponent lose initiative, gives you speed, makes the opponent lose speed, makes you immune to slowing effects, makes the opponent immune to making fast effects. It does a lot of things, but on those things are not very impactful because it's only by 1. You like, you know, gain 1 speed, lose 1, the enemies lose 1 initiative, 1 speed, and so on. So it's honestly feels good thing to cast, where it's gonna be just like swinging the tide, making the opponent slower, making you faster, making you be able to connect better, making the opponent like connect worse. So for that reason, this spell is pretty usable, pretty decent, but like for a level 5 spell, I would expect like a little bit more impact than that. The only good selling part is that it's really easy to use because it's almost like fitting for almost any situation. If you have like nothing specific that you're doing, well, you can do Dorius' Tide. It's never going to be bad, but usually you're expecting like a little bit better. Assemble, probably pretty good in... yeah, Assemble is probably good in classical formats. However, I'm more rating it for 1 hero right now, so it's not usable. Early start. So getting initiative is going to be like very important. You're going to be able to like use an early start on one of your stacks, and that will make it then move last in a turn and also move first in a turn, making you be able to like get 2 hits off immediately. Initiative is one of the most important statistics in the game, and being like the initiative leader is going to be able to like make you You know, be able to hit first, and that is almost everything in in Heroes of Might and Magic. So this simple spell, the simple tier 1 spell, I think is actually like at the very least B tier, maybe low A tier. Sorry, low A tier. It's just like so trusty. I find myself casting it in pretty much every single game. In so many scenarios, in so many fights, I'm just like looking for early start, and I feel so sad whenever I don't have it. It's, yeah, it's a very good spell. However, it's not like strong spell, it's a good spell. There's a very big difference, you know, so you have to like be a little bit crafty in order to like make use of it. Be aware. Next up is Energize. So Energize is going to be as good as your focus benders are, and usually the focus benders are going to be like not really that great, so it's only still good in very specific situations. Well, generally good on Necro, because Necro can always like spend focus in order to like get the army back, which is, you know, good. However, I would say that it's like not a super impressive spell. It is low B tier. Next is Energy Explosion. This is like the most garbage thing that I've ever seen. Who designed this? You deal like a little bit of flat damage, not scaling with power, based on the amount of focus charges that you have. So you need to have like a lot of focus. You have to have like this level 2 arcane spell. It better be high level. And the payoff for all of that setup is like 200 damage. It's pathetic. It's so undertuned. It's insane. Like, I have no idea. Why is it... It's... bottom F tier. I have no idea why it exists. Guillotine! Guillotine is one of the most surprising spells for me. I find myself using it way more often. So tier 1 arcane spell, it deals percentage damage based on the maximum HP of a single unit in that stack. So it's pretty good for dealing damage to high tier units. And it also stacks up damage the more that you use it. It's very usable, and honestly, I find myself using it in more situations than I would initially expect. It also has an execute at higher levels, where it's going to be like killing off a stack at a certain threshold. I do not remember that threshold, I'm sorry. I use it just to like deal chip damage to high tier creatures, and it's pretty good at doing so. You don't even need like that much power for it to, you know, function the way that it's intended. Pretty good. Impending Fate. So this is a slightly better energy explosion. It will be dealing pure damage based on the tier of the creature, but however the damage is flat, it doesn't scale with power, and it's also like a level 3 spell. So you get, by the time you have like a level 3 spell available to you probably have like some power, and to like cast a spell that doesn't like use any of your power and just deals like a little bit of like flat. The flat better be big, but the flat is not big. I casted this like once in my life, and that was just because I had like literally nothing else to cast. It doesn't feel that bad, but it's honestly, well, yeah, it's kind of garbage. I will actually put it high F tier. I will not give it any more than that. Next up is Mirror Copy. So Mirror Copy is amazing. Level 5 arcane spell. One of the, well, yeah, this is like peak arcane. It will create a copy of a stack. At peak efficiency, the stack will be dealing 30% less damage and will take 50% more damage. So it's not like an exact copy, but it will stick around. Unlike Heroes of Might and Magic 3, the clone does not get like, you know, just like dispelled the moment that it's touched. It can absorb buffs, it can... I mean, yeah, if you have like, once again, the 100 Archangels, you click mirror copy, and then you have like another 100 Archangels that will then get the passives of the Archangels, meaning that they can absorb the buffs from the other units steal. It is an amazing spell that scales with your army, and the armies get pretty big in Olden era, so that's like a very, very good thing. Yeah, just like a super solid spell to cast in very many scenarios. It is S tier. Next is Optical Illusion. So Optical Illusion is a level 1 arcane spell that will be letting you take less reach and range damage on all of your stacks, up to 50%. The numerical value in this is insane, and however, it is pretty niche. You know, you're only taking like less range damage. In the cases where it's good, it's pretty good. So I would say that it is a solid high B tier spell, one that you should always be looking out for. If you're playing against Temple, just building like a few mages level 1, maybe like finding, you know, like using Dust to upgrade the spell as well. It's gonna be letting you have like a level 3 or a level 4 optical illusion that will do like a lot of work for you in the early phases. Kind of solid. I like it. Reality Distortion. So Reality Distortion, what it will do is it will take all of the damage that you're taking throughout a turn, and it will only apply all of that damage at the end of the turn, and also at reduced value. So in late game situations where you're just like facing off against the opponent, like there's a lot of hits going both ways, it's a pretty decent spell to cast. However, I find myself having a hard time casting it over like some others. However, the currently better player than me, Rito Sucks, who's currently number 2 on the ladder, he really likes the spell. So I'm gonna be respectful to him, and I will put it in A tier. However, I personally have not really found A tier type of value from the spell yet, but I'm still in a pretty exploratory phase, so I believe that I eventually will. But this rating is based on Rito Sucks evaluation. Next up is Reinforcements. Level 2 arcane spell that lets you recruit remotely from a dwelling. Amazing. It just lets you rally way better. You can actually pick up your dwelling army without having to like walk out into the dwelling. It is so handy, so useful. I really like it. I would put it alongside the relocation, because the amount of army that you're getting is like not super meaningful, but it just feels good, you know? Like you're not wasting those units that are rotting in the dwelling. You actually have them with you now, and they're part of your army, and that is so nice. Next up is Rewind Life. So this is the Resurrection, and you don't even need to have like advanced earth magic for it to actually keep your units. Just baseline, straight up, if you're gonna be casting the spell, you're gonna be keeping your units. Really good. It prevents bleeding, and at higher levels, the numerical value is good enough for you to even cast it in late game Finalkas. Very solid spell. I don't think it rises to the S tier, however, it is definitely at the very least high A tier. Next up is Shackles. Shackles will be... Honestly, I don't even remember what it does, oh no. I think it either prevents people from getting focus or removes their retaliations or something along those lines. Either way, it is not very... I haven't even seen it used once in my entire life playing Olden Era, and I don't think it will be seeing any play soon. I think it's trash. If it was good, I would know what it would do, you know? Next up is Spatial Snare. Now this one... Oh, I had to learn the spell the hard way. So, Spatial Snare, like, you place traps on the ground, and then whenever something is going to be, like, stepping on the trap, they will get stunned, and they will be skipping their next turn. This is actually one of the best crowd control methods in the entire game. You can either use them as a trap whenever, like, somebody is, like, going to be walking over them, but even better is when you have, like, some sort of displacement of your own. You can actually just put the snares and then put them into the snares. So, for example... the arbitrators in Schism, the tier 6 unit, have like command fear, which will let you reposition an enemy, and you can reposition them straight into a spatial snare, making them lose a turn on probably a very important stack, and that is, you know, like losing a turn is like a super big deal. So the spell is good, and honestly, I got owned by it a few times, and I'm always pretty surprised by how powerful it can be. It feels like... You know, in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, we used to have like some sort of like infinite scenarios where we can crowd control people for like forever by using blind and berserk cycles. Spatial Snare is like the closest that we get to that in Olden Era, and as such is a really good spell. A tier. Temporal Spheres. So these ones just deal damage whenever you like walk through. It's a pretty desperate way to deal damage, but it's like pretty mana efficient. So, you know, it's not the worst. It's like a B tier spell. Next up is Cave-In. So Cave-In is going to be dealing a lot of single target damage, and it will also make debris around the target. In all of the available hexes where the debris can be placed, it will be placed. You have to like hit the debris in order to get that unit out. So it's just like a little bit of damage and a tiny bit of crowd control. It's kind of cute. It's like a C tier spell. Not super usable, but sometimes cute. Next up is Stone Fangs. So Stone Fangs, you get to remotely select up to 4 targets that you're going to be like dealing single target damage to them. Well, multi-target damage, I suppose. And it's a pretty good spell. However, it really needs like primal spell levels in order to be good, because the spell power scaling by default is like 5 or something. So you really need to work in order for this to deal damage. But if it does deal damage, it feels really good to basically get 4 lightning bolts for like a single click. So yeah, honestly, it's like another run-of-the-mill damage spell. Next up is Primal Remnants. So Primal Remnants is like the beefiest summon available in the game. Well, apart from like Shadow Armying like 100 Archangels, of course, or mirror copying the 100 Archangels. But, you know, if you don't have like a very beefy army to start with, then Primal Remnants is going to be like your best bet to summon a stag that will have like some sort of lasting value. They deal a good amount of damage, they're really tanky, they're pretty trusty, and yeah, they're pretty good. I don't think they're as good as the Star Children, because they're not shooters, they're not AoE shooters, so, and they're also like a level 5 spell instead of a level 4 spell, making it quite a bit harder to access them. Not to mention, they're from the Primal School of Magic, which is like less valuable in general compared to Nightshade. You know, like Nightshade has like all of these other spells that you want Nightshade for in the first place. So, you know, you will be probably picking up Nightshade and have like access to Star Children, but you don't necessarily like pick up Primal that often, so the Primal Remnants will be more elusive, despite being beefier than the Star Children. Next up is Fireball. So Fireball is basically like an area of effect lightning bolt that is accessible very early in the game. That early game accessibility is like everything for the Fireball. You get to cast it basically like starting turn 2 and deal a good amount of magic damage in an area. Very trustworthy, yeah, very trusty. I would say that is better than these run-of-the-mill damage spells, and you use it like way more often, and it's quite a bit better. It is at the very least B tier, high B tier. Earth's Rage. So Earth's Rage is the Earthquake of Olden era. However, it deals damage to everyone inside the walls on a pretty meaningful amount too. In Siege Combat, it is one of the best spells that you can actually cast. It is really good. The problem is the fact that you're never in Siege battles in Olden era almost ever, and so it is not very good. Way too niche. Low C tier. Next up is Fireball. So Fireball, unlike in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, where you like, you know, make just like a single wall that's like predetermined in its shape, you actually get to select a few hexes where you want it to be. It's by the time that you would get it like normally playing the game, you know, it's a level 4 primal spell. It's not really going to be like good by that point of the game. However, if you start with it in the early game, for example, the sorcery specialist from Dungeon gets it. If you started off on him, then it's actually like pretty usable. It's a mana efficient and high damage spell that you can use in order to like clear some early game. It's okay. It's not great. It's okay. However, I would put it like as one of these like run-of-the-mill primal damaging spells. They're not very good compared to like some of these others. I will also zoom out a little bit. There we go. Sorry, just a moment. I will also make it so that you can see all of the spells, shall we? There we go. And there we go. Now we can see all of them. Hell yeah. Next up is the Armageddon. So Armageddon is the good old Armageddon that we know and love from Heroes of Might and Magic 3. This time it's a level 5 spell. And, you know, if you get a high level Armageddon and you get like a unit that is immune to it, then it can be pretty good. However, the situation for that is like way too niche. Armageddon feels like pretty unavailable to get. Playing with units that are immune to Armageddon is also like pretty unavailable. Unfortunately, it is not as impressive as it was in some of the other Heroes of Might and Magic installations. I will put it at the very least like low B tier, but I don't think it deserves any more attention than that, because the game is more army focused and buff focused. So usually that single black dragon stack that you're gonna be like, like playing for with Armageddon, usually will get hunted down and killed by an actual good army. So yeah, it is just like not a very powerful playstyle the way that it is right now. Next up is the Circle of Winter. So Circle of Winter is one of the better primal damaging spells. It will deal damage in all of the hexes around the selected middle hex. The same as Circle of Frost in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, except that this one has a lot of damage scaling. It also like has a displacement thing where it's gonna be like displacing things around the target too. So you can maybe use it to like expose a shooter at the same time while damaging all of the guards. A pretty decent spell and a good payoff for primal. It is B tier. And it kind of feels like a better Fireball, but however, it's still like worse than Fireball because of its limited availability as a level 4 primal spell. Next is Chain Lightning. So Chain is not really dealing as oppressive damage as it did in Heroes of Might and Magic 3. So, in Heroes of Might and Magic 3, Chain is easy S tier. However, in this game, being a primal spell, being a level 4 spell, and competing with all of these other better spells, it is not really aging that well. I would put it in high B tier. Next up is Primordial Chaos. So Primordial Chaos is like a control spell that will let you regenerate a guard. It will generate a guard that is going to be 10% lower in value than the previous one. So if you're going to be playing like setup that is unavailable to do like some fights. For example, you're playing like whites and you can only do like 5s that you can vamp. Or maybe you're playing some sort of like slow walkers and you can only do 5s that you can, that don't shoot. So you want to like regenerate a shooter. For these scenarios, it can be a little bit cute. However, it is generally not a very powerful spell. Notably, can also be used to fish for good Diplos, but once again, Diplo is in rough shape right now. So because of those use cases not really being that great and being pretty niche, I don't think it's a very good spell. It is C tier. Well, yeah, C tier. Next up is Fig Hide. Now, Fig Hide is, in my opinion, the best primal spell. It will make all of your units take 30% less melee damage. It is literally Expert Shield from Heroes of Might and Magic 3. And for some reason, it's in primal, and it's really good. Taking 30% less damage from attacks is pretty damn nice. You can get this going like super early. It's a level 1 spell, so you like just build a bunch of mage guilds, from all of your towns, and suddenly you have like a level 4 Fig Hide that you can, rely on, use. It's pretty good. It is going to be low A tier. Next up is Icebolt. So another run-of-the-mill primal damaging spell. A little bit better than Stonefangs and Cave in my opinion because of its like early availability and also the initiative aspect of it. But once again, not a very impressive spell. Next up is Hixmilla's Rampage. Now this one is gonna be like hard to rate, because once again it's like a multiplier on your army. This one makes a stag deal and take more damage and also give them double attack. So once again, back to the 100 Archangels, you can make them shoot twice and deal more damage at the same time. It's a very impressive spell. And it's probably the best spell for getting a lot of immediate damage out there in order to just basically like one-shot your opponent. This is the spell that you click whenever you want to like one-shot your opponent, and it does it really, really well. It's pretty niche, despite being pretty powerful. For that reason, I would put it high B tier. Next up is the Crystal Crown. Crystal Crown places just a few crystals on the ground at target locations, and they're just like terrain, and they can be hit in order for them to be gone. It's pretty good for guarding like some sort of like choke points in the battlefield if you generate any. Pretty good for securing your shooters. It's like a spell that you like will sometimes cast just because it's available in your spellbook and you can get like some value out of it. It feels pretty good to use, but it is like a weak spell. It is C tier. Next up is anti-magic. So anti-magic is really, really important. You can cast it on opponents. Whenever you cast it on the opponents, you're going to be dispelling all of the temporary units, for example, Shadow Army or Communion. You're going to be immediately killing off summons, just like single click, so summon stack gone. You can also like dispel debuffs off of you. It's a super high utility spell that you want available in most scenarios. It is pretty good. One of the better primal spells available in the game, A tier. Next up is Ground Sight. I don't really feel like it does anything. It like shows like the fights and their sizes, but I really haven't like found a good way to get like much use out of it. And yeah, now we have, let's do Line of Bolt first. So Line of Bolt is the tier 1 damaging spell. It's basically like the actual magic arrow from Heroes of Body Magic 3. You can rely on it, it's immediately available, and the way to deal good consistent damage over time. It is honestly like a low A tier spell, just because of its trustiness and availability. Very nice. So, right now we have the last one, Wean. So, Wean is basically like in the same boat as Inner Light. Instead of like reducing the debuff duration on all of your army, this is going to be reducing the buff duration on all of the opponent's army. So you're going to be getting like situations where the opponent is casting like, you know, Radiant Armor, Blessing, Ariana's Touch. He's getting like so buffed up that you can, the opponent's army is becoming like literal gods in front of your face. And if this continues, you will just like straight up lose. What do you do in that situation? Well, you better have prepared a high level Wean or you're gonna lose the game. Because Wean reduces the duration of all the opponent's buffs by, you know, a multitude of your power, a multiplier of your power. And that is super important. This is one of the most important spells in the buff-debuff economy that currently exists in Olden era. And for that reason, it is going straight up next to Inner Light, as it is equally important to have as Inner Light. Yeah, these two spells are very underrated and very, very important. And as you're going to be like climbing in the higher tiers of ladder, you will see that these spells are absolutely essential to have. So even if you don't have like primal spells, you're going to be building out a bunch of like Mage Guilds level 2 just in order to have like these two spells available. So yeah, these are the spells, and I really hope you guys enjoyed these ratings. These are a lot of fun for me to do, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be like subject to change. There's going to be like a lot of balance patches. This will not really stand the test of time, but this is the way that I currently see the game. I am rank 5 on the Olden era ladder, so, you know, my word probably does mean something, and I'm also, like, absorbing a lot of the information from the other top players as they're, like, hanging around on my stream as well. So, you know, thank you for watching. I shall be seeing you on the next video, and catch me live on stream. I stream almost every day at twitch.tv/luckshov, and also, make sure to like and subscribe if you like this type of content. I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!